The impending eviction crisis. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian Heiser here and welcome to another episode of Heiser Says. Grab your stein of coffee, let's have a look at this article from The Age. How am I going to pay this? Wave of evictions coming as the moratorium comes to an end. Now, well, we've had a rental eviction moratorium. You couldn't evict people for some time and that's coming to an end. So what's going to happen to all of these people that just can't afford to pay or that have not been given a rent break, that have just been racking up a debt with their landlord? And what about the poor landlords that haven't gotten paid? Maybe they're struggling to maintain payments on that mortgage if they've borrowed money for it. What are they going to do if they wanted to get rid of these people? So, when Noelia Mansour lost her job as the pandemic reached Melbourne last month, or we should really say the lockdowns reached Melbourne last March, she had no idea how she'd pay her rent. Okay, so you're meant to have, what we should all have aim for is to have at least 3 to 6 months of all of your expenses in cash, either in a bank account, somewhere you can access, just there to keep you going. And then you've got to find a way to stretch it out, maybe move, maybe find other savings. This is the problem. So, laws introduced by the Andrews government to prevent mass evictions helped. Along with landlords willing to negotiate, rent on her Abbotsford apartment fell from $440 a week to $330. Months later, with the pandemic in full swing and Melbourne ground to a halt, Mansour was still without a job. Paying even the reduced amount was beyond her. She went to the State Administrative Tribunal for another rent reduction and succeeded. Her rent fell to $170 a week. But with the moratorium on evictions ending next Sunday, the 45-year-old is fairly certain her time in her Abbotsford home will soon be up. I have no idea what I will do if I can't find a job in the next few weeks, she said, whose job seeker payment will fall to $616 a fortnight, as the supplement added by the Morrison government also finishes. Figures obtained under Freedom of Information show that despite the general eviction moratorium and bans on rent increases, landlords are taking tenants to the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal in a bid to get them out. So eviction applications are on the rise. There's October, November, February. In October, applications to end a lease based on tenants' inability to pay the rent were at $685 for the month. In February, this had grown to almost $1,100. Well, okay, this chart obviously hasn't copied correctly. Rental groups expect a surge in evictions the moment the moratorium ends, and federal unemployment support schemes such as JobKeeper wind up also on March 28th. Renters are heading into a perfect storm, said Jennifer Beveridge, Chief Executive of Tenants Victoria, which will on Friday release a survey of tenants it deals with. It finds the end of eviction moratorium looming as a stress point for many, particularly those in vulnerable sectors such as hospitality, tourism, entertainment, and leisure, where the biggest job losses were felt. Now, here is the fundamental issue with all of this. This is caused by the government intervening in the economy. Now they are intervening and locking down to attempt to mitigate the spread of this illness. Now, research has come out that has, well, at least based on the evidence and studies of similar locations with similar medical facilities, that the lockdowns have not had a dramatic effect or a deciding effect on morbidity. Is it worth it? Are these interventions worth it? The discussion needs to be, when did it suddenly morph into complete eradication rather than management? How many people could manage the risks with the economy continuing, with jobs still in place, with potential negotiations, or at least the freedom for someone to move to a cheaper place? We'll see if that's even discussed anymore. It feels like it isn't. All the incumbent political leaders are leveraging their interventions for political gain, and the opposition seem to be, well, pointless at the moment, at least on a state level. Look at what's happened in WA. Look at what's happened in Queensland. Look at what's happened in Victoria. In regional Victoria, Jason Clow is seeing it begin. The New Zealand man who moved to Australia 4 years ago hasn't been able to access any government assistance payments. So, well, if you're in that situation, you need to really save a lot. In employment, from the time he moved to Australia, he took a job at the Mo RSL early last year, but lost it after 6 weeks when the venue closed due to the pandemic. See, here you go. No, not due to the pandemic, due to the lockdowns. We've got to remember what is causing this damage to our economy, what is destroying people's lives. Because there were arguments to do the same thing back when we had the bird flu and all this stuff. And people, the advice was no, not to do it. Because of the economic ramifications. That seems to have been forgotten. It really does. He negotiated the weekly rent on his Mo home from $250 to $150. He also got help from a state government grant that totaled $3,000. So he did get some support, giving the landlord a supplement for their lost income. But on Wednesday, the process beginning is like the eviction started. His landlord applied to VCAT for an order to terminate his lease. It doesn't guarantee his eviction, but it's the start of the procedure if the owner chooses to take that path. Well, you can't blame the owners for doing that. But what's going to happen is there are going to be all these people evicted. Then rents will decline as owners struggle to get people in their properties. He says he understands the landlord needs help too, given his reduced payments, although he started paying $200 a week late last year. I'm not unsympathetic to their situation, but I'm also trying to catch up on everything I'm behind. I'm $800 in arrears on my car loan because of having to put it on hold. Why the hell do you have a car loan? Why do you have a car loan? Buy a piece of crap for $1,000 or $2,000. Is this all coming down to just the complete lack of financial literacy here in people in Australia? I'm really, the more and more I'm thinking that is the key to advocate for, well, to move away from socialist and leftist political ideologies that are infecting Australians, is teaching them financial literacy, getting more people to stand on their 2 feet so they don't need to be in a situation where they depend on the state, where they scoff at the idea of even having to go through the rigmarole of depending on the state because they're secure in their finances. Is that naive, guys? Do you think it's even possible? How could we achieve that? Let me know your suggestions in the comments, because I'm trying to think about that. I think that is the key, honestly. That's the best way we can shift the Overton window. If you get more people financially secure, if they're not dependent on the state, if they're not suckling on the teat of mummy government, then suddenly they can stand and go, you know what? No, that's BS. We don't need that garbage. Get out of my life. Give me my freedom. So he now has 2 casual jobs. And says stringing together enough money isn't easy. Sell the car. Buy a cheaper one. Lee Callan is president of the Real Estate Institute of Victoria and director of Metro Property Management. She says new rental laws coming into place simultaneously to the moratorium ending will prevent any serious problems. Oh, these laws are just crazy. If you look at the amount of rights they take away from landlords, it's just nuts. It is nuts. Victoria is really our California. Who's going to want to buy property? Who's going to want to put up with being a landlord? I mean, you've got to realize now, guys, this is an inherent risk in actually investing in housing. The government can just implement these rules and take away your ability to earn any money from them. So, there will be evictions, but there are extensive delays in getting hearings at VCAT. So while owners might want to end tenancies, it might still take months. But Ms. Callan says there will certainly be some people asking to leave properties. There are still a proportion of people substantially behind in their rents. A spokeswoman for Consumer Affairs, Minister Melissa Horne, said the state government had assigned tenants and landlords throughout the pandemic, or had assisted tenants and landlords throughout the pandemic with support, including rent relief grants of up to $3,000 during the eviction moratorium. She said new tenancy laws starting on the 29th of March would provide better support for renters. For example, a renter cannot be evicted unless VCAT decides that it is reasonable and proportionate in the circumstances, she said. Norlia Manson in Abbotsford is now $1,800 behind on her rent. Attempts by the Age to discuss her case with her agent in Box Hill failed on Thursday. She belongs to the Renters and Housing Union, and its secretary, Erin Toslidis Noyce, says thousands of renters are now stuck in situations similar to her with insurmountable debt and threat of eviction. $1,800 isn't insurmountable. It shouldn't be. Get out of the property now. Sell your stuff. Go somewhere cheaper. Can you in Victoria? Will Dan allow that? Remember what you voted for down there, people. And I know probably most of the people watching this channel did vote for that, but remember what your neighbors voted for. The Karens that report you if you have too many friends over for a barbecue. The economy hasn't recovered from the pandemic, so why would we expect that low-income renters have? The rental reduction scheme urgently needs to be extended to keep people in their homes, she said. This is the problem. There's going to be calls for that forever. Then the next will be calls for, and I'm seeing in the comments already, people saying, oh, we need the government to to rent control. And you know what happens with rent control? Then you get a black market and subletting. So, yeah, it doesn't work. Government intervention is never the solution. It is the cause of all of these problems. And sadly, fear. Propaganda, fear, manipulating people so they'll go along with it. Ms. Manson says the combination of losing $100 in job seeker payments and the moratorium ending could make her life dramatically worse. I pay what I can afford, but how am I going to pay this? You can't. Move. Find a new place. Find a way to save money. Sell your trinkets that you don't need. The guy there with the car loan, get rid of the car, buy a clunker. Get rid of the loan. You don't need a nice car. You can get something cheap. You'd be surprised what you can get away with. So what do you reckon, everyone? I mean, there you go. We're going to have a wave of evictions. The smart landlords will work with their tenants to keep them in, but I don't blame them for wanting to get rid of people if they're not making any money. Maybe they need to sell. Maybe they're going to be forced to sell. This isn't mentioned here in this article. Maybe some of these landlords are going to be forced to sell because the banks are putting pressure on them, so they need to get people out of there. And they're just getting more and more of a hole dug. What do you reckon? What's your take on this one? Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and enjoy the content I create here, there are a few ways you can support us. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links from Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Aussie Broadband. You can buy merch from Heiser Says, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care. I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.